Everyone, Mongo Dan. This is my gravel bike here. It's a Salsa Warbird size 61, I believe. Biggest one they make. I mainly use it as a road bike, also use it as a gravel bike, and just kind of a whenever I need to go around town bike. But for the past while, I've been using SRAM Force Wide. You know, they got wider cranks, but it also has a chain ring that's better for climbing. It's only a 43 for the big ring, a 30 for the small ring, and in the back cassette I have a 1036. Once again, at the Force Wide rear derailleur now. But that's all for that today. Today is a bit special because I have parts to do some experimentation. I'm going to try to do a 1X setup again. I've done it in the past, but it was a Shimano GRX setup, basically. Worked out okay, but I wasn't just a fan of the range of gears I had. I didn't quite have a low enough gear or a high enough gear because of where I had to pick my chain ring and the smaller range of the 1142 cassette. But things have changed. Everyone knows about the SRAM mullet for gravel. You use the 10, 50, or 52 cassette and whatever chain ring you want. That gives you one extra gear ratio than what I had before and a much wider range. So let's see how that goes. I'm gonna get the parts real quick, be right back. And I'm back. If you saw my short, you've already seen this cassette and this ring. They're from Garbrook. This is a 1052 from them. Particularly, I like this from them because it has a slightly different step range right near the top. Instead of using a 42 big ring, or second the big ring, I use a 43 when jumping to the 52, which helps smooth out that ramp, which is an important detail that a lot of companies I think miss, including SRAM. I also got an oval chainring from them, which I'm going to be trying. I put one of these on my mountain bike. I quite like it. I'll talk about that in another video. And this is a 42 tooth, so this should actually give me a ever so slightly easier gear than what I currently have and almost the same top gear. Instead of a 43, I have a 42 10. You know, and that's going to be a little bit different, obviously, but should be pretty close. And let's go install them. Well, it's the next day, and I have put on the chainring, cassette, derailleur, done all the reconfigurations to make this a 1X bike. I lost right about a half pound, almost exactly, so it'd be about, you know, what is that, 275 grams or so. And let's look at it real quick. So up at the top, it's all the same. Coming down to the crank, you can see now no front derailleur and just the chain ring. In the back, you got that massive cassette. And I went with a SRAM SX1 derailleur off another bike that I have for this is test. And put the pulleys on there to match everything else. Another nice thing about 1X drivetrains is you're gonna get really good chain line. Along with that, it's also technically slightly more aerodynamic and less maintenance and fuss. The chainring keeps everything on really well because of the narrow wide tooth profile. Now that I got everything all set up, I guess it's about time to go take a ride. Let's go that way. Yeah, so I'm riding this on my Warbird. I'm converting it to 1X to see if I can do it again. I've done it before. Didn't quite like it, but I had a smaller range then, and less hilly, even flatter terrain. So my last comment about the gear increments was actually less of an issue. So we'll comment about climbing a little bit later when we get to the climb. In the meantime, here's some Sofia, Bulgaria road. You know, it's really these false flats where the one by really shows its weaknesses of not having enough gear increments. On the climbs, it's not too bad. But on flats and false flats, you're going downhill quickly, right at the top end of the cassette. Those 13 to 20% jumps are just a little too much. I don't know if you can quite see it yet. There's a good downhill. That's actually one other issue of 1X. You don't have quite the top end, generally speaking, because the way you choose your gears as you would at the 2x system. But I'm not really going to chalk this one up as really a negative so much, because you're going to be trucking on these downhills. Yeah, just as something to note, that on downhills, you normally run out of gear a little bit earlier on 1X because of how you choose your gears. Kind of hard to see, but that's a downhill right there. one benefit of 1X, I would say the more adventurous you get, the more it makes sense. You're out here on a barely worn in double track. His gear ratios and increments make just fine steps. It isn't what we're all out here for the gravel bike, to be out there a little more, not to be next to the road the whole time. It's a little bit nicer, so +1 for 1X. Yeah, one nice thing about riding in Bulgaria, you always have a mountain view somewhere. It's kind of hard to see here, I'll zoom in for you, but that's a really tall mountain. It's like 7,500-ish feet, actually I'm thinking a little bit more than that. But also on the other side, you can't see it today, but there's also another set of mountains over here. Yeah, being in the middle of the Balkans and from a scenery standpoint is awesome. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about the bike I'm riding this 1X on. It's a Salsa Warbird. It's the most current generation, but it's like the first year the frame was made. Currently have SRAM Force on it for the shifters. I have light bicycle. I want to say these are WR3046s. I'll put a link to them. They're actually really nice. Rims on Hope Pro 4 hubs. Disc brakes, hydraulic disc brakes, force cranks. Some time pedals. So this is the Garbrook 42 tooth oval ring for these cranks. And I'm running the Garbrook 1052 cassette in the back. Well, some people would say, you know, if you're worried about steps, why'd you go with the 1052 versus say something else? Well, any of the wide range cassettes have pretty big jumps down at the bottom of the range. They're all 10, 12, 14, 16, I believe, and then they change up a little bit between manufacturers if you're either Shimano or SRAM or Garbrook, whoever else is making the cassette. There's a couple other ones like E13, but their steps are actually even worse for this kind of setup because it's a 911, which is actually a bigger jump. So I'm running a SRAM Eagle train, SRAM XX1 Eagle derailleur, ASX as well to match with the shifters. And you know, that's kind of the standard components. So yeah, 1052 cassette, 42 tooth ring puts me at a slightly slower top gear ratio compared to my SRAM Force wide setup, which is what I'm really comparing this to. So I want to compare kind of apples to apples, not a true road setup, and not a true, and not like a super dedicated, like, you know, cyclocross or something else setup. This is actually kind of an apples to apples, a wide 2X comparison to a wide range 1X comparison. Yes, there's the SRAM Explorer setup, but I think those gear ratios are just way too limiting. Yeah, it's a 10, 44. You lose a lot of low end on that. I do a lot of climbing. I'm not a light rider, so the wider the range, the nicer. That's actually the reason I went with the SRAM Force wide versus the regular SRAM Force. So yeah, try and keep an apples to apples comparison, trying to keep the comparison fair and comparing objectively a tight range, a wide range gravel setup to 1X and 2X. This kind of other things noted about the bike, something that's kind of cool about the Warbird is that you actually get 3 bottle cages on larger frame sizes. I believe the smaller ones lose this one because they just can't make it work. But you know, having 3 bottle cages is actually really nice. And next up will be climbing. So we'll talk a little bit about climbing with 1X and 2X, both wide range setups. So let's talk about climbing real quick with 1X. You know, it's pretty darn good, like I said before. These a little bit wider gear ratios actually work out really well at really slow speeds, like in that 3 to 10 mile an hour range. The gaps feel just about right because you're not actually accelerating as much speed in between gears, even though you're accelerating the same percentage. You know, I was just got done coming up here, got a little more coming up here, and yeah, it's been pretty good. Just me being out of shape, not the gearing or anything like that. Yeah. Also, one benefit to 1X is you can run an oval ring and it work well. I'll say that that caveat because the oval 2X rings really don't shift well, and there's other issues along with them. They are also normally not as oval, whereas ideally oval is single rings. So I like oval rings, a little easier on the knees. Gets my power down where I have power in my stroke better. That's actually true for almost everyone. And yes, that's another benefit of 1X. You can run good oval rings. And it's a little more scenery out here. Onward towards the main road up here. and then riding back home. So now that the ride is over, as you see, Sophia has a mixture of flat roads and some really steep hilly stuff as well. The GoPro never really shows how steep things are. You know, the ride I went on has pitches up to 15 to 20% in spots. And definitely you use those low gears significantly more than you actually normally use high gears. On the flats, 1X definitely shows its weaknesses. Those gaps are definitely bigger than what is ideal, especially considering when you have like a slight false flat downhill, or you just have a long stint on a road where you're trying to get to somewhere. Those bigger gaps, especially in the further down the cassette and the smaller range, really show. So I think for me, I'm gonna go back for 1X for now. Not over with this experiment yet, but I need this as a decision path, really comparing them back and forth. I'm lucky enough to have a really solid 1X drivetrain. I was able to steal off my gravel, or my off-road touring bike, and my true dedicated gravel drivetrain, which is the SRAM Force wide ASX setup, which is a compact, or actually ultra compact front and a fairly wide range cassette, which gives me, these two setups will have a fairly similar setup. So as I ride these more, I'll probably make another follow-up video on my impressions riding them back to back again. I also need to get some 45C tires and see if that will do what I'm looking to do. Many experiments to come. Thanks for watching today. If you want to see anything else from me, leave a comment below. If you like what I do, subscribe always helps. And yeah, actually subscribe would be over here, won't it? And if you like the video, like it. And until then, just ride.